I even like the main card kickoff. I mean, you give me Jack Marshman anytime. I know he's potentially a shell of his former self, but Jack Marshman's the man. I think he's an absolutely fantastic fighter. But yeah, Molly McCann and Priscilla. Ooh, we'll see what happens.
Well, before we get into the betting odds of this show, I got to put over ESPN hard. And I don't know how it reflects on TSN up there. We talked a lot about pace, and we talked a lot about the time spent on cards, and it was a drum that we beat forever. So considering that has been heavily rectified, I think we would be remiss to not talk about that. The pace in which ESPN has put these shows on has been magnificent. The time that they're putting on. I almost threw a pizza party, Joe. I almost dialed up my friend. I said, Nikita Krylov fan, you know what? Come to think of it, he did actually bring several pizzas over to UFC 235. So we had a pizza party.
Nice.
I called Dylan Cornette, the great gym owner in Georgetown, Kentucky, and I said, get over here. It's a pizza party. They say, why? And Sean Ross Sapp says, you know what? It's because ESPN is putting shows on at 7, 8, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's because they're starting them at 1 and 2 p.m. Eastern. And when they're in London and all that, they're not trying to force these poor people in the UK to stay up till 2 in the morning just to cater to us. Hey, we'll watch the shows. And if we don't watch them live, we'll watch them later. I love the ESPN era from a digestible content point of view. They also, what I think is very smart, at times they're putting like 6 fights on the main card. That way they can fill out that time. They're like, we'll just start the main card earlier, have an extra fight on there, and we'll load them up right after the other. They're not waiting on anybody, Joe.
I do like that. You're right. My only concern is they've got to step up their graphics game, because Fox's graphics were about 1 billion times better than the UFC's graphics. When we used to go from the main card of a Fox show, when we used to go from the prelims of a Fox show to a pay-per-view of a UFC, I was like, what the hell are these stupid graphics that my 8-year-old son can create on his iPad, right? Like the graphics that Fox had, you knew that the color of the shorts was where the fighter's name was. So right away you could tell. You could tell what round we're in. You can tell the time. You could tell all different things. There was more to because let's say somebody's walking into the second round of a fight, right? They walk into a bar. They get home. They turn on the television. It's a second round of a fight. You don't know who's who when you look at the UFC graphics, because they're black, white, and gray. You have a name. You don't know what weight class it is. You don't know anything. When the Fox had their graphics up, when Fox had their graphics up, you knew the weight class that we were watching. You know which fighter was which, because if they were wearing yellow shorts, their name was white on yellow or black on yellow. If they were wearing red or blue shorts, it was red, it was black. You knew what weight class, you knew the time. You got more numbers in there to say who's ahead on the fight, significant. I know they're still doing it now, but the graphics that ESPN is using, why they are using the UFC's graphics is beyond me. They've got the talent, they've got the production staff, they've got the editors to just go in there, put your ESPN graphics on there like you would for a basketball game or for a football game or a baseball game, so fans that are tuning in can actually know who's competing, because the fans don't know everybody, right? So, but the pacing is great. It was no joke. Like, they was just like, let's go. Next fight, no post-fight interview. Let's go. So I really enjoyed that. I don't understand these whole freaking...
I've done some fight coordinating in my day. It's a lot easier said than done to make that happen. Sometimes fighters try to operate on their own schedule, and ESPN's not having it. I like that. I'm with you on the graphics thing, though. We have UFC London this weekend, headlined by Teal and Masvidal, Edwards and Nelson on this show as well. Man, it's a good card. We're going to give you betting odds. I'll give you my I got 5 on it picks afterwards. 2 and 3 of those hit this weekend. Really only got a hit on one of them pretty much to make money. But starting at the bottom, Mike Grundy, a -165. Nad Narimani, a -190. You have Dan Ige, a -155 over Danny Henry, a +135. You have Ian Heinisch, a +115 against Tom Breeze, a -135. You have Nick Negamoreno, -185. Safarov, a +160 Those fights, there's nothing that really necessarily stands out to me here. You have any of those fights isn't going to make a dent in the division. None of them seem like any outstanding value or anything, but it's when you get above this, well, and not necessarily the bout order, there's some depth on this show. Not from a marquee name value perspective, Joe, but Duffy and Jacasey, I look at that and I'm like, how is that not on the main card of this show?
Yeah, considering where it is too, right? Well, I shouldn't say that because Joseph Duffy's Irish; he's not English, but
yeah,
does have a name over in Europe. I mean, you mentioned 8 fighters, with the exception of Tom Breeze. Maybe somebody would know who he is, but despite Dan Ige being a guy that fought for Titan back in the day, you mentioned 8 names that when you actually look at that, should they be competing in the UFC?
Don't need 13 fights on this show.
Okay, done. Right. So, my heart's with Ige. Hope Ige wins that fight. But other than that, Joseph Duffy and Ducasey, I mean, that's a solid scrap right there. And my 5 on it could be on Ducasey in that fight, man.
4 of these fights could go with all 4 of those fights could have went. And I get it. A lot of people say, oh, well, keeping the venue longer. They buy money in concessions. People aren't showing up. You ever watch a UFC show? Nobody's there. Nobody's there until the main card. However, Duffy, a -220. Jacasey, a +180. I think there's some value on Jacasey to the point to where I'm probably going to put 5 on it just because he is a very, very dangerous striker. And he's lost 3 in a row, but a lot of people, they forget he came in that great run in Bama. He had a nice run starting out in the UFC. I do think that we've probably seen the end of Jacasey in the UFC for a while if he loses this fight. But then again, Bellator probably picks him up because they would love to have him in Bellator Europe.
Yeah, hang on.
They would. How much does he weigh? 155. That's Pitbull brother territory, my friend. Headlining Bellator UK. We also have Arnold Allen, a -150 over Jordan Rinaldi, a +130. Jack Marshman, a -165. John Phillips, a +145. And that goes into some of the fights on the main card, including Danny Roberts, a +130. Claudio Silva, a -150. Any of these guys you're looking forward to performing?
Jack Marshman.
Yeah.
Jack Marshman. The Robert Silva fight's going to be nice as well. I think it's going to be fantastic. But those are all good scraps, man.
Jack Marshman, the thing is, of late, I mean, he made his name on finishing fights and finishing fights almost everywhere. There were a few rarities, but generally, if you take him to the scorecards, you stand a chance. You're going to get a majority decision, a split decision, or you might beat him. I think that's the key right here. You got to drag him into the later rounds. Danny Roberts and Claudio Silva. When I look at Danny Roberts, I see a guy who, like Marshman, finished a lot of people, didn't in his last fight, went to a split decision, but it was a fight of the night. He's a guy that puts on exciting fights no matter what. And a guy like that is always dangerous. And especially when you see his last win, and you're like, okay, he can go to the scorecards, and he can do it in the UFC. He did it with Dom Steele before. He's not that single layered type of guy that is knockout or nothing or anything of that nature. And Claudio Silva has quietly won 3 fights in a row as well in the UFC. So this is a very underrated fight. I'm probably going to go with Claudio Silva in this one. Jose Quinones, a +250. Nathaniel Wood, a -300. They like Nathaniel Wood an awful lot, and we do too at Fightful. He did an interview with James Lynch. Go check it out. That's quite the line. You're not going to see a ton of lines like that, but it's a line that I can't put 5 on.
No, not that. I mean, Quinones comes from the Ultimate Fighter, right? But it's just one of those things. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Morales, Gomez, Rivas, and Ishihara. But we all know Ishihara was sort of the tail end, right? So it'll be a good scrap. I just don't think he emerges victorious, to be honest with you.
Molly McCann, Priscilla Cachoeira. I don't know why this is listed so far up on the odds. Molly McCann, a -185. Cachoeira, a +160. Look at it this way. No matter what happens, it can't be worse than the Shevchenko fight.
There was a slight talent gap when that fight took place.
Oh yeah, I can't believe they booked that. That was woo. Molly McCann's probably winning this fight, by the way. Then we get 3 real good fights. Real good fights, Joe. Dom Reyes, a -265. Volkan Ozdemir, a +225.
Crazy.
I'm going Reyes, but damn, do I have 5 on it.
Yeah, man. Why not?
Ozdemir, a +225. This is going to be a rock'em sock'em, wreck'em brawl. I hope. And, you know, part of me wants to see the new contender in Reyes emerge. But, man, +225, a guy like Ozdemir who looks at you, and if he makes eye contact, you fall over and you go to sleep. Huh? How do you set that line? How does betting get that out of control? I know a lot of people are high on Reyes.
That's exactly what it is, right?
I'm high on Reyes too. But damn, man, what a line.
Yeah. It's what have you done for me lately? What's the hot guy? Remember, a lot of these lines are generally set. The bookies aren't dumb. The bookies will set the lines, and hopefully there isn't much movement on them, and then hype will drive a line. Just go look at oftentimes a Manchester United or Manchester City. Any of these teams or fighters that have big fan bases, the lines will generally move, and the bookies are not stupid when they set them. So this is a situation where, and then they're always hype, right? So Dominic Reyes has a whole boatload of hype. Ozdemir, not so much, because he had that quick run and then, the title fight or whatever. And then it's just like, okay, is he that good? Was it a flash in the pan? Although it's not. So yeah, you got to put 5 on Ozdemir, even though if you believe Reyes is going to win, it's one thing, but can't tell me Ozdemir doesn't land one shot and change the game.
Leon Edwards has won 6 in a row. He's beaten Donald Cerrone along the way. He's facing Gunnar Nelson. This could be a very boring fight. It could be. You're looking at it. Leon Edwards doesn't have a performance bonus since his 8-second knockout 4 years ago, but it is also a very high-level fight as well. Now, I'm not as in love with Gunnar Nelson as a lot of people, but the guy finishes fights for better or for worse. Outside of a couple of his decision losses, that's been his trend. Leon Edwards is real good. He's won 8 of his last 9. His one loss in that period, Kamaru Usman. His other loss in the UFC, how about that guy, Claudio Silva?
Yeah.
Who took 4 years off, or 3.5 years off, and didn't miss a beat when he came back. I mean, it's kind of wild. It almost made me forget that Claudio Silva took so much time off, but it also, I think, adds a little bit to the undercard, because now when Claudio Silva walks out to that cage, they can look at this and say, yeah, Leon Edwards, who's fighting tonight, got beat by this guy. Yeah. So that makes him seem more important. Who do you have winning this fight?
Oh, can't go. I know Leon Edwards is. I'm going Gunnar Nelson, man. Going Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson's going to get a hold of him. I mean, I just wish you could see a bit more aggressiveness than what Gunnar generally shows. He's such a calm, that demeanor that's so calm. But man,
the Machida syndrome, man. Like Machida, when he gets aggressive, you see a very dangerous fighter.
Yeah.
But they want to fight. They want to wait for the weakness. And a lot of times that happens for Gunnar.
Yeah.
People come right to him.
Yeah, I'm totally going to go with Gunnar in this fight. No disrespect to Leon Edwards. He's a fantastic fighter and the favorite in this scrap, but I'm still high on Gunnar Nelson, if that means anything.
How high are you on Darren Till? Because the betting lines are very high on him. -240, Masvidal +200. I believe that Darren Till. First off, I can't believe this is a main event. Yeah. All due respect to Masvidal, I love watching the guy fight. All that. He's lost 2 in a row. He's 3-4. He's never been in a UFC title fight. Love watching the man fight, though. But a little bit odd to have him on a couple of pay-per-views that he loses. He didn't headline the Fox card with Cerrone. I think he didn't headline. He was like 3rd from the top against Ellenberger. I don't know. I think the last time he main evented was in 2015 against Ben Henderson. He lost there as well. He's going to be at a very big size disadvantage here. Darren Till, who is, quite frankly, a middleweight.
Yeah.
is facing Masvidal, who was a lightweight, would be better suited at 165. I'm going Teal here.
Yeah, you know what? It is sort of weird matchmaking, but I do like it only because, Masvidal is not going to back down. Masvidal's got that gimmick. He's just absolutely a gunslinger as is. And if you look at his last 2 fights, so first things first, Darren Till does take out Stephen Thompson. You can make the argument that fight could have went the other way, right? Stephen Thompson should have won that fight. So he's got the skill set to go 5 rounds with arguably the best technical striker in the division. Now, Masvidal did the same thing. He lost a unanimous decision to Stephen Thompson, but proved quite well that, arguably the best striker in the division can't knock him out. Then he goes, before that, he went the distance with Damian Maia, arguably the best submission fighter in the division, couldn't tap him out. So, Darren Till is going to have his work cut out for him, right? If he thinks he's going to finish off, when's the last time he's been finished? Masvidal hasn't been finished since when? I'm looking here. I'm looking. He technical submission, Toby Yamada, Bellator 5, May 2009.
Was that the inverted triangle?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the last time he's been finished. Right? So
when you put it like that, that tips me towards I got 5 on it territory, because if he can drag this to the scorecards, I'm sure his cardio is going to be better than Darren Till.